Thank goodness. A new piece in Politico on this July 4th is calling America a time bomb, saying the country is in denial on issues like income inequality and climate change, and that politics as usual won't solve anything. So is that really a fair assessment? Let's talk about it with Ellison Barber, writer for the Washington Free Beacon. She joins us from D.C. Is it fair? Is America a time bomb?
Well, I think the title, which is probably an editorial decision, is a little bit dramatic. I don't think that that would be the phrasing or the title that I would pick. But I mean, this article is very clearly, it's an opinion piece, and it's not written by one of their reporters. It is a commentary piece. And kind of what he's arguing is that, like you said, that climate change and income inequality, those are huge, important issues, and that the left needs to be fighting and talking about them in a particular way more often. And that, that really is just going to be an opinion. And you'll agree with that if you're on the left, and you probably won't if you're on the right.
When you're looking at this from the perspective of President Obama, who has oftentimes used executive action over the course of his administration in a way to try and home run around a Congress that has not brought a lot of his things through that he would have liked, is there a fair point that politics as usual doesn't work, or is it the opposite? This is exactly what the founders devised in the sense that you have a checks and balances system.
Right. I think he made an interesting point in regards of saying the way that perhaps we talk about politics, not necessarily to say that it doesn't work, but he talked about how sometimes partisanship is a tactical tool. And I think that's right. And I think that I would point to people to the large anti-establishment wave that we see on the left and right, and Congress's approval of 13% to say that a lot of people are frustrated with what they see as empty processes. But one thing that he talks about is he talks about how confrontational and conflictual politics are a good thing, because you want to have that so you can have a more substantive debate. And I think when you take that idea broadly, that is a good idea and probably something that most people would agree with. And again, I think that's why you have Congress as a low approval rating. If people feel like congressional leaders are posturing or not really having substantive discussion, they're frustrated with that. And so I think in that regard, very broadly, if we strip away the partisan aspect of this piece, I think you could say that there's some truth in that and in the way that people are perhaps talking about things that maybe needs to change and that the public would perhaps like to see be more substantive.
Well, some will tell you that the fact that there is an American gridlock system in Washington is an American success, not an American problem. But is there a difference in America now that it used to be, say, that back in the 1950s and the 1960s even, that everyone was in it together, that there was a different idea about how to get there, but there was a common goal? When you're in Washington and from your reporting, do you get the sense that members of Congress, perhaps the American people, now have divided goals, and that's part of the problem?
I don't think that that's a problem, though. I think what you said in your last point is accurate, that that's kind of the way the system was set up. And I think people like that because you don't want something to easily be shoved through. But I do think there's something to say, and that sometimes people feel that some politicians, and what I have seen from a lot of people when I spent the last year covering a lot of Tea Party rallies, and what I saw and heard from a lot of Tea Party members is that they are frustrated with what they see as politicians just posturing and not really meaning what they say and that type of thing. And so I think that is something that people are frustrated with in terms of just the way that we talk and sort of what you see coming out of Congress. I don't think they're frustrated necessarily with the system or saying that, hey, the system should be easier to get things through. I don't think that that's what most of the average people think, but I do think that there is a frustration with politics and with just the general way of how Congress is working. And I don't think that necessarily has to do with not getting things through. I think it's just kind of more, I think it's just a more general frustration, if that makes a little bit of sense, than necessarily a particular thing of saying that we want this process sped up. I think they see a lot of inaction from their congressmen on both sides of the aisle, and I think that's why you have Occupy Wall Street movement on the left and you have the Tea Party on the right pushing back against the old way of Congress.
You make a good point that the anger's coming. You make a good point. Anger's coming from both sides. Ellison Barber from the Washington Free Beacon. Thanks for joining us.